Hey, and welcome to the Meditations and Musings podcast. I'm Elena Lipson. I'm a mama, I'm a wife, and I'm the founder of the Divine Self-Care Circle membership and the Virtual Retreat Academy. I don't believe that you have to sacrifice your body, your health, or your family in order to create true abundance and prosperity. I believe in living based on the divine feminine metrics of success, and these include pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. Each week, I'll bring you 1 to 2 new episodes. One of these will be a guided meditation that you don't have to do on the meditation pillow, and the other will be a conversation to help you access your inner wisdom, to ignite abundance, and inspire others to do the same. I invite you to join me on this journey back to the magic of a divinely aligned and well cared for you. And now, join me for today's episode. Hey guys, this is Elena Lipson, and this is episode 11, and I am so energized, excited, grounded, expanded, all kinds of feelings today. Today is actually the day that I'm recording this. It is the Solar Eclipse. It's August 21st, 2017, and it is one of those days where a big swath of the United States was all looking up at the sky to catch a glimpse of the solar eclipse that was happening today, and I sort of wasn't even sure exactly how we were going to celebrate it today, or I guess not celebrate, but how we were going to engage with it, interact with it. I was going back and forth between should I just kind of stay home and meditate and do it that way, be more internal, or should we find a beautiful place to go out there? And to be quite honest, I think if it was just me in a bubble, I probably would have taken a bath and meditated and journaled. But I have an 11-year-old son who is fascinated in science and in the sky and the stars and the moon. And I sort of picked up on his excitement and figuring that this would be a once in a 40-year opportunity. It hasn't happened here in that long. And so I thought, well, how can I do this in a way that honors my need to really ground with nature, to really be internal, and to also give him the opportunity to explore. And so we ended up getting invited to view it at this beautiful waterfront park with some dear friends. And I thought, I just want my feet on the ground. I want a blanket. I want to see it, but also have the opportunity to just be in nature. And it was amazing. It was so good. And it was so fun to see it, that childlike playfulness with it, that curiosity. It really allowed for nourishing that part of myself. And as you know, if you listen to the intro to this podcast, and if you have been following me for any length of time, you know that I am very passionate about teaching the feminine metrics of success: pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. So this definitely tapped into that play part of ourselves. And I do believe that play is a portal to the moment, to magic, to really tapping into that part of you that is so much more than the serious adult human that so many of us become. And I just think that we're missing the point altogether. So I was really grateful for the opportunity to tap into that energy, to witness and awe. Awe is one of those things we don't experience very often unless we allow ourselves to step into it. And that's the kind of feeling that you feel when you're standing in front of some gorgeous, piece of art, or maybe you have experienced being around, just an ocean scene that makes you feel excited, and anywhere in nature really that makes you feel that sense of grand scale. It reminds you how small you are. It could even be an incredible sunset, that you have gotten to witness. So anyway, I'm really excited, and I'm really tapped into the energy of magic and the energy of rhythms and seasons and cycles. And I'm just feeling so very grateful that I get to see life through the lens of my 11, almost 12-year-old son, who reminds me, hey mom, let's lighten up and go have a laugh. So we do a lot of laughing together, a lot of magic, a lot of play together. So and I I always carry a deck of cards in my bag because I'm telling you, if you're sitting somewhere with anyone and you're like, oh, we just need to shift the energy, pull out a deck of cards because it's amazing. So, but that's not what we're talking about today. So what we're talking about today is, the title of this episode is, To Get to the Freedom, You Need the Structure. To get to the freedom, you need the structure. And this particular thought philosophy came up in a conversation I had with a dear friend just a few days back. And we were talking about writing. And she's writing a book and I'm writing a book. And we're like just talking about the difference between following inspiration and allowing it to flow out versus creating a schedule for yourself. And then even we went deeper. We went into the idea of when you're writing a book and you have this arc, this overriding arc and understanding of where your book is going. Even though it might feel like you're oppressing your creativity, I feel like in some ways we just had this discussion like, okay, we could see that in some situations that having a frame for your creation, like you know where the beginning is, you know where the middle is, you know where the end is, you know ultimately where you want them to go, with pivoting and changing and adjusting as you go, because following the creativity is also really important. But within creating a structure for yourself, you can experience true freedom. I'm going to mention a book later in the episode that I think influenced my understanding of creating a habit that allows your creativity to express itself fully. And it's really counterintuitive. So wait for the end of the episode because I'm going to give you the book that really changed my thinking of this. And I read this probably 10 years ago, and I refer to it to my clients really often because so many of my clients, and maybe this would reflect you as well, are creative people, are entrepreneurs, are usually moms, and they want to express themselves creatively somehow and feel like it has to be perfect and feel like it has to be super inspired, or you don't sit down to your canvas or to your computer or to your notepad, whatever your modality is. And this particular book, an author really talks about the opposite of that. So I'm going to mention that at the end. So make sure you have a pen and paper ready because this is one you're going to want to go and check out of the library or grab on Amazon. I'm not an affiliate for it, but it's one of those books that I recommend often. So to get to the freedom, you need the structure. And this is so relevant when you're a mom. You start seeing this, that it's very, very important to have a container, a structure with children because they feel safe if they know that the same thing is happening. Most likely, right? Dinner's around the same time, the bedtime ritual is the same. They get really comfortable to express themselves in that way. So for example, we have, our rituals within our family have definitely changed over the years because as a person grows and changes, especially a child, their needs get different. But there was always, like when my son was little, we had the same kind of ritual wherever we were. Even if we were traveling, it would still happen. And so it allowed him to feel safe, comfortable, and at ease in order to go to sleep. And it was a series of 3 books we would read. I would sing him 2 songs. We would, there'd be a bath, then there'd be another song, and then he'd fall asleep. And so that shifted over time. Like the books that we read changed, the songs changed a little bit. Like he really doesn't want me to sing to him anymore, but once in a while I will still throw in one of those cute songs that I used to sing to him when he was little, and he just laughs. It's really funny. So within that structure, he had the freedom to just relax into it. And so I really look at that and I can see that as he's gotten older, the rituals that we have with our family make him feel very grounded. And so now as an adult, as an entrepreneur, and as a mom, as a wife, I can see that for myself, when I know that my Mondays are for writing, my Tuesdays are for podcast recording, my Wednesdays are for meeting with my business partners, my Thursdays my self-care day, and usually, right? And then Friday's my morning date with either a friend or with my husband, depending on our schedule. So that's kind of a typical 5-day schedule that I have during the school year. Now, of course, it has changed over the years, but within that structure that I created for myself, so I own it, I am able to really release the need to be constantly recreating the wheel and instead go deeper within what I want to do. So I want to share with you three reasons that in order to get to the freedom, the structure is or is the structure is where it's at. Sorry, I got a little backwards there. So the 3 reasons that this works is because, number 1, via this daily rituals, you create a container for acknowledging and managing your energy, right? So this particular structure where you are using daily rituals to create a container for acknowledging and managing your energy is really important. And the best example that I can give for this is that I teach the 3-step magic morning practice. And if you listen to all the way to the end of the podcast episode, you just go ahead and see that I give you a free gift of learning the 3-step magic morning practice, because for me, this is a container that allows me to show up and to manage my energy in a very powerful way. And in that magic morning practice, there's physical, so there's movement, it's mind, body, and spirit. Every single day, I do something to acknowledge and manage my mind, my body, and my spirit. Now, these do change over the seasons, but they're always there for me as a container. So when I wake up in the morning, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to recreate the wheel every single day. And to me, this releases so much creative opportunity and creative energy to be poured into something else. So now that it's summertime here, my morning ritual looks very different because I love to be outdoors. So I literally will roll out of bed. I will do my little stretching. I'll say my gratitude prayer, and then I'll put on my walking shoes and my walking clothes, and I'll go for a 2.5 to 3 mile walk. And on that walk, I get to connect with, how am I feeling today? Am I walking faster? Am I feeling very enthusiastic? Am I running some sort of story in my head about what's coming up today? Am I still holding on to stuff from yesterday? So I really get this opportunity to tap into my energy because I have the same daily ritual in the morning. And after that, I do some journaling over some coffee when I get home, and I can really, pour out sort of where I am and tap into who I want to be that day. And so if I didn't have that, if I just hopped on email and hopped on Facebook and Instagram first thing in the morning, I would end up being so influenced by, and quite frankly, thrown off by other people's energy, other people's needs, other people's desires, and I would get overwhelmed with the lack of connection to my own body, my own intuition, and my own voice. So that kind of daily ritual is a really important way to acknowledge and manage your energy on a daily basis. That's a really powerful way to get to the freedom. You need the structure of the daily rituals. Another way that this works is to deepen your work. When you have a structure of connecting with your work as a craft, as a skill on a daily or a regular basis, even if it's weekly, you get to deepen your work. And in that depth, there's freedom to express yourself, whether you're an artist or a writer or a chef, right? If you have the structure to connect with your work with the intention of going deeper, then you're not going to be someone who feels like I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, right? So I think what happens, and the reason people don't appreciate this particular depth to their work, is because they get frustrated. We live in a time where we are very impatient to make $1 million with that book. We want to be on the New York bestseller list, but we haven't really taken the time to build that craft, or we want the Insta success. We want to draw a painting and have someone see it and give us $1 million for it. Well, it just, maybe does that happen? I don't know. I guess someone could write their first book and it becomes a bestseller, but that's doing it for different reasons. If you want to become a master of your craft and really fly in a way that feels like you're living with purpose, then you want to deepen your work. And in order to deepen your work, you have a structure to connect with it instead of constantly looking for the next thing. Now, I'm all about being in flow. I'm all about being intuitive, but it actually deepens your intuition. It deepens your flow when you don't have to think about it. You don't have to think about, when am I going to do this? You just have this structure that you've created for yourself with the intention of mastering your craft and deepening your work. And that is a powerful way to get to that freedom through structure. The third reason this really works is because it gives your ego and your self-doubt some reassurance, right? So I'm not one of those people that think that your ego is negative and that self-doubt be banished and that fear is not a part of the process. I know it is because I've been writing and speaking and creating and coaching and building businesses over the years that I know that whether you're making $100,000 or $10,000 or nothing, there's always ego, there's always self-doubt, there's always fear. For me, I like to say that it's about learning to dance with it. It's about learning that it's going to come. As soon as I make that decision to go and apply to be a speaker on that stage, or I get invited to co-facilitate some gorgeous retreat, whatever, it could be anything, even a book contract. I've gotten book contracts that have fallen through in the past. As soon as that thing happens, your self-doubt, your ego, and your fear, it's like they get activated right away. And the most typical response is some sort of self-sabotage, some sort of limiting behavior, right? If you haven't read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks and haven't heard the technology, The Upper Limit Problem, I highly recommend that you go check this out. In fact, it's on the list of books that I recommend on elenalipson.com/resources, along with other books that I adore. So if you aren't familiar with that and the process that happens as soon as something amazing happens, or say like you make some money, or whatever it is, there's part of you that comes up right away that tries to sabotage it, tell you why you can't, won't, and shouldn't. And the trick is to understand that this is all part of the process. So when you have a structure in place to come to your work on a daily basis or a weekly basis, whatever it is, then you just automatically know. You don't even have to think about it. You give your ego and your self-doubt a rest and reassurance. Like, you know what? I get it. Today might not be brilliant, but it's going to be there. Like, it's going to be fine. And so it lessens the harshness of your own self-criticism. So those are the 3 reasons that the structure is so important to get to the freedom that you crave so deeply. Because you're human, right? And I just heard this interview, actually I listened to it again, with Elizabeth Gilbert and Jonathan Field from the Good Life Project. And she was talking about so many people don't think they're creative and they think they don't have a creative bone in their body. But what she's learned to do over the years is to replace the word creativity with curiosity, which means that if you said you don't have a curious bone in your body, that sounds ridiculous, right? Because we're all, unless we're dead, we are curious about something. And as long as you follow that curiosity, that you will follow it to something that is deeper or bigger or turns left or turns right, as long as you stay curious, right? Unless you're in a deep depression, which is definitely something that needs to be addressed and helped and supported, that you are a curious being. So again, to review, the 3 reasons that structure works in order to get you to that freedom is because daily rituals create a container for acknowledging and managing your energy. That's number 1. Number 2 is it allows you to deepen your work and really master your craft. Number 3 is it gives your ego and self-doubt some rest and reassurance. And we all need that, right? We have so much of that monkey mind going on all the time that this structure in your life, in order to connect with the thing that you want to create, really allows you to just, lighten up, right? So what does structure look like? What exactly does it look like? So I'm going to share with you 3 examples of structure to get you to that freedom that you're craving. So a good example is if you're writing a book, right? A writer, there's so many ways to write. Like I have listened to podcasts, read books on creativity and writing. I've gone to workshops. I've taken creative writing classes in college. Like there are so many ways that writers write. Some writers write in coffee shops. Some writers have to write on that particular, cozy bed in their bedroom. Some writers have to be in their office. Some writers can only write in the morning. Some writers can only write at night after everyone's asleep, especially if you're a mom of young kids. There's so many ways to write, but writers all have one thing in common. They write, right? They write. Even if their writing is 10 minutes a day, even if you commit to just sitting down for 10 minutes a day and just pouring your heart out. So an example is if you want to write a book like I am craving to do, I am committing to a daily writing practice. Sometimes it's in my journal, sometimes it's in my computer, just to kind of get the creative juices flowing. Even if it's 10 minutes a day, at least it starts me writing. It starts that flow of trusting that my voice is developing. And I know that if I put my mind to something, that I will get better over time. Like my first podcast episode and my 101st podcast episode will be very different because I will have had 100 episodes under my belt, right? So I will understand that I can apply this logic and this knowledge, this common sense, to my writing as well, knowing that, well, maybe it's not going to be great at first, but it will get better over time. So that's number one. Number two is an example of a structure that allows you to show up at your best is really committing to a wellness and daily movement practice. If you want to do it with a friend or some accountability person, like a trainer, that is bonus. But the reason this kind of structure is so powerful is because, well, movement is one of those things that allows you to take care of your most essential asset, yourself. When you're stuck in your body, when you're stuck in feeling like you don't like your body, like you don't have energy, like you're constantly tired, the creative juices are gonna feel the same exact way. Most people who commit to mastering their craft in any creative way, in business, are also, they get the knowledge that their body is the vehicle, it's the portal to creativity, to tapping into that energy, to that enthusiasm. If you watched or have seen anything that Tony Robbins does, he talks about this quite a bit. And I teach this in my work as well. As I mentioned in that 3-step magic morning practice, it's one of the key core foundational elements is daily movement. And that could be running, walking, yoga, Pilates, jumping on a trampoline, whatever your brand is. I love Zumba. I love to dance. So that's part of my several times a week practice. If I'm not dancing, I'm outside walking or going for a run. If I'm not doing that, then I'm doing some yoga in my room. Like there's always something going on, but every single day I'm committed to my daily wellness because within that structure of knowing that my day is always starting out with movement, I get the freedom to not even think about it. Am I going to do it? Am I not going to do it? When am I going to do it? I know it's on my calendar. I'm keeping promises to myself. I'm doing it, right? So that's a huge example of how structure gives you the freedom to then access that well of creativity and enthusiasm. That's number two. Number three is something that I learned actually from one of my amazing Divine Self-Care Circle members last year, who is now an expert in the circle. She's an artist, and she teaches to commit to an ugly version. Commit to an ugly version. And then this concept got mirrored recently when I was reading a book by Dani Shapiro, where she talks about writing a short, bad book. And I just about laughed out loud when I read this. It was in a book about creativity. And when I read this, I just thought, I felt my entire body relax because I thought, I'm trying to write a New York Times bestseller. That's a lot of freaking pressure. So I thought I can write a short, bad book, because the cool part is when you start writing, it's going to flow. You'll have an editor. If you want it to be published, fine. If you want it to be a short story or poetry, whatever it is, if you're feeling called to write, you're going to write. And there's going to be someone who's going to want to read it, whether it's 20 people, whether it's your family members, whether it's a big scale audience. I don't know, but you can't write to that. You can't write to someone, picking up your book and putting it on the bestseller list. All you can do is access that part of you that has something to say. And committing to an ugly version of it on a daily basis is going to allow you to take those steps forward and forward and forward. If you committed to that, of showing up, that structure, you're going to surprise yourself, right? Because what you're doing when you're committing to this structure, why this works so well, why is it so important to get to the freedom you need the structure? Because what you're doing is you're showing up for your inspiration. I think that was one of those beautiful things that I heard from Elizabeth Gilbert as well. So I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due, because I get so inspired by Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and her latest book, Big Magic. If you haven't read that, definitely got to read it. So I promised you the book that changed my thinking about showing up for your creativity. Now, I already mentioned 2 books. One was The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. That was all about your ego, your self-doubt, your fear, all of that. The second book that I mentioned, well, I mentioned 2 more by Elizabeth Gilbert. One is called Eat, Pray, Love, which I'm sure you've heard of, and the other is Big Magic. It's a phenomenal book on giving yourself permission to do creativity your way. Really, really phenomenal. If you haven't heard it, it can be like a daily devotional because you can really open it up at any point in the book and gather something amazing from it. But the book that really changed my perception of creativity and how I can trust in the process if I create it. It's called The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp. That's Twyla Tharp, Tharp. And her book is also on my resources section on the website, elenalipson.com/resources. Now, this book is so phenomenal. Twyla Tharp was a very well-known, very famous Broadway choreographer. And she was very, very creative. She worked on Broadway shows like Cats, if you remember that. She's worked with Elton John, many, many big names to create phenomenal, long-running, popular Broadway shows. But she also created a lot of crap along the way. So she says, look, I knew that if I just kept showing up to my creative habit, that not everything I create was going to be brilliant. In fact, there was one show, I think she co-created it with Elton John, that they put it out there and it was a flop, a complete flop. But then she came back to it and she redid it and it became one of the longest running hit shows. And I wish I could remember what it was, but if you read the book, you'll get the story. But it was such a great example of really trusting that, you know what, I'm going to create a ton of crappy writing, a ton of bad choreography, anything I do, even if I'm learning how to bake pies. It's like that first pancake, right? When you make pancakes, you just know that that first pancake is the throwaway. But by the third and fourth one, they're better, they're holding better together, the heat has stabilized in the pan, all kinds of things. So that's what happens with you. It's like once you get that fire going on a consistent basis, your pancakes are going to be phenomenal, right? But some of them are going to be crappy. So I want you to really allow yourself to make that ugly version and to trust that to get to the freedom that you crave, financial freedom, freedom of time, freedom of self-expression, freedom of creativity, that you are going to benefit by having a structure. So ask yourself this question right now. What kind of structure feels really good to me in order to create what I want to create? Now, it might not feel really good to all of you because your ego is going to be like, oh my God, I can't do that. I have 89 kids and I can't show up every day. I could only show up 3 times a week or maybe once a month. I don't know. I don't know your life. I have really dear friends who have written 4 or 5 cookbooks and have 5 kids. And I have friends who have no kids who are still struggling creatively. So it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Like permission to not use your life as an excuse granted right now. If something is important to you, and I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you because I've had this book living in me for a long time. If it's important to you, give yourself permission to show up to it on a daily basis, even if you start with 10 minutes a day. If you want to become the best, acrobatic yoga person, practice 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. If you want to play the guitar, guess what? Practice. If you want to become an amazing ukulele player because all you want to do is be that person that brings the ukulele to the fire when you're camping, right? Then guess what? Start practicing. There's no excuse right now. You can go on YouTube, you can look up a video, how to learn to play the ukulele, and watch it every single day for the next 30 days. And guess what? In 30 days, you're going to be able to play one song with 3 chords on it because I did it. So I became that person that can play the 5 chords in a really phenomenal way. And I can play most songs because I can follow along with those chords. And so if you want to show up for your inspiration, for your genius, start it. Start now. Start today by asking yourself, what kind of structure can I create for myself so that I can get to the freedom, the expression, the sheer orgasmic joy that comes from mastering something that you care about? Whether it's cooking, dance, writing that book, becoming a painter, give yourself permission to be that. No degree needed, no certification needed, just do it, right? Let's go back to Nike, just do it.
So I hope you've gotten something from this episode today, because I really believe that we all have access to this freedom through the structure that we create in showing up for ourselves, for our craft. So don't think of this as an easy, quick, insta success. This is over time, right? Over time, you're going to feel amazing about yourself. You're going to love that you committed to yourself. You're going to be proud of yourself. And when you're proud of yourself, you can do phenomenal things in this life. That's it for today. I hope you enjoy those books I recommended. Again, elenalipson.com/resources. Scroll down to the book section and enjoy some of those books. The ones that I recommended today were The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, Big Magic, and Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. And finally, the one that shifted my perception about creativity is The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I can't wait to bring you some more inspiration, some more meditations moving forward. And my name is Elena Lipson. I'm your divine self-care mentor, and I really invite you to take care of yourself today by committing to your own creative habit. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time on the Meditations and Musings podcast. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening and learning about the new divine self-care way of being in your life, business, and the bedroom based on the divine feminine metrics of success: pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. If you're ready to bust the myth of overwhelm and tap into an inspired start to each day, I've put together a free video series for you to help you start each day with energy, inspiration, and ignite that inner pilot light which attracts joy, magic, and synchronicity. You can access my 3-step magic morning practice to help you ignite your inner light and attract the abundance that you're craving. Head on over to elenalipson.com/gift. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would so love if you share it with a friend, a sister, a mother, a daughter, and please leave a review. That is how the magic starts to ripple out. Here's wishing you a day full of beauty, magic, and divine self-care. I'll see you next time at the Meditations and Musings podcast.